then we'll have a preview into the last part of the InfoVis material. And this is called focus and context visualization. Anyone have any questions about the InfoVis material up to now? It's a lot. In that last lecture, you got spam with lots of things. It's really a lot of information. And this is something you've already seen. It's very, very common. And I'm just going to go through a number of examples to illustrate this point. I don't know if you guys can remember, but when we first started the InfoVis, the topic of information visualization, there were some challenges that we identified. And one of the challenges was, or one of the questions was, is some data more important than other data? That was one of the big questions. And if some data is more important than other data, is there some way to handle that? Can we focus on a certain subset of important data, but still preserve the rest of the data as context, to keep us from getting lost? And that's what this topic is about. It's called focus and context visualization. And that means choosing a subset of important data from the whole to be the focus, but still preserving the rest of it as context information. So emphasize features and visualize the rest as context. And this is a little bit of a refresher. So in all the visualization examples that we look at, the data set sizes are too big for the display space. You only have something like one megapixel or something to display data, but you often have data set sizes that are much greater than that. And so we can treat the data non-uniformly. That means some data is more important than others. And in that last example, the engineers only wanted to see a tiny fraction of their huge flow. It was just that tiny fraction that went in the reverse or upstream direction. Now, we also saw an example, if all the data is shown in focus, then we overclock the screen. Right? Remember that parallel coordinates example where it was just a big block of white polygons and we couldn't see anything? However, if we only show the data we're interested in and we leave out everything else, we might get lost. Right? If I gave you the map of London, remember the London example, and I said, where are you? And then we found out where you are. We put like a little red circle around the nearest tube station. That would be like the focus, that little red circle. But if I then cut out that little red circle, if it was like on a piece of paper and I just gave you that piece, you'd be very angry at me. Because you still want the rest of the map as the context. You'd still be lost if you only had that focus information. So that's the idea. Can we include both the focus or the important data and the context, the unimportant data, so we don't get lost, right? And this often means combining different techniques together, like different combinations of color mapping, opacity, zoom levels, and so on. Here is one example. So here we have a time series plot, it's called. So time is on the x-axis. And then there's an x, y, and z component of acceleration on the y-axis. So it's time versus amplitude in this plot. That's kind of a standard time series plot. What's happened here is the user has selected a special time that they think is important. And that this whole thing, this serves as the context. This special time period is then given its own window, like a zoomed in view. So that's the focus. And this is actually accelerometer data, so it has a direction, and it points in different directions. And then those vectors are plotted on a spherical histogram. So there are lots of accelerometer vectors, accelerometer data samples pointing in this direction in the spherical histogram. And that's also part of the focus. And so this is the context, and then these two are the focus. It's also an example of multiple coordinated views, because the user interacts with this view, makes their selection, and then the focus is brought into these two focus views. Does that make sense? Okay, I think that, yeah, I think now is a good time to stop if there are no further questions and those sorts of things. Have a good weekend. I should have asked that in class, because it's a good question. Yes, what you're asking about is like, how can I verify that what I'm doing is correct? There are a few different ways to do that. Well, there are 3 different ways that I can think of off the top of my head. Well, 4 actually. One is just to try to draw something by hand. So imagine you had a line plot. You just look at the original numbers and try to draw some of the line plot, like the first 4 symbols, by hand to see, oh, is it matching? Another is to make sure that if you do something more complicated, like a area chart or scatter plot chart, to compare it to something simpler, like a bar chart or a line plot.
Something whose answer I can predict something simple.
That's right. And make sure that they're consistent. So take something complicated and compare it to something more simple. Make sure that they're consistent. Another possibility is to compare what you have with somebody else. So somebody else that looked at the same thing. Compare and do it better. That's another possibility to verify it's correct. And the fourth one, I think, is not. But those are, yeah. It's, I mean, one thing too is just using your own kind of judgment too.
It is for the initial
Yeah.
sample.
Does this make sense what I'm seeing on the screen? Does this make sense? Yeah, that's stop.
That helps.
Keep up the good questions. You're very. I can see you're going to do very well with this. I can see that. I think you are. Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Sorry, I don't quite get it. Are the values lower C and higher C? What do you mean by biometric certainty?
So CI stands for confidence interval.
Or confidence?
Confidence
Sorry, confidence in
interval. INT. Confidence interval. And so, what some people do when they measure data or they count things or they conduct experiments, they also try to measure the amount of uncertainty associated with what they're doing. So, like for example, if I look outside and if I just go outside and say, okay, I'm going to guess it is 4 degrees outside based on my skin.
Yeah.
I would also, if I'm a scientist, I would say plus or minus 4 degrees, because I could be 4 degrees off.
And that's the uncertainty.
That's the uncertainty. Yes. So my confidence interval in that is 0 to 8.
Do you mean like
0 to 8
is it like
degrees.
up and down and lower?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
all right.
That's right.
Got it. Thank you.
Everybody's too afraid to ask these questions in the class. During the class.
Anyway, with the assignment, it says about the templates. One of them is to include the data preparation. However, what if there was the case where we didn't have to prepare the data, it was already ready for it to just read and
Just say no preparation necessary. I would be surprised if you didn't even have to do anything. At least, like, you probably had to delete something or copy and paste something.
yeah, I was just wondering if there
Yeah, you can say no alterations necessary.
And my second question is about, so we have to do 5 visualizations in order to part 2. However, would you expect us to use more than one tool? So we could use Tableau, but if we use it for all of those visualizations, would that not really be recommended? Would you recommend it to use?
To get the full credit, you need to use 3 tools. Yeah, that's right.
I just want to
Yeah. And there's an explicit question about that, I believe, on the assessment sheet. There should be a question. But that will be assessed. Yeah.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah, I just remembered some things I wish I had said. Cardiff. Do I have a meeting with you too?
Yeah.
I just can I just reason because I was
Yes, of
speaking
course.
to Liam and I said I'm not sure if my data makes sense at all because I've been past I've had to use data but I never had to sort it and visualize it.
Okay, okay.
It's
You wanna
later as
put
well.
it here?
When I downloaded my own data, you know, the one that you now uploaded, it
Yeah.
looks very different to what I initially had.
Okay,
So
okay.
this is not something I'm gonna submit, but just as an example, when I was playing with it. So this is just an example. For example, I have so each CCG, and here I think I had basically here I also had time. So for each year, I had all the values collected for this was mental health. So I
Okay.
just have values, and I also did like for example, is this above average or like
Okay, yep.
you know,
Yep.
it just says lower, higher, same. I think
Yep.
that was like compared to, I think it's percentage, like if in England there are this many people, that percentage is this. So
Yep.
in
Yep.
Birmingham, for example, it's above average, here it's below, here it's the same.
Yep.
Is this something that like if I properly obviously do it, is this something that I can submit?
Yeah, definitely.
And what I did like for
yeah.
each year as well, so you could scroll and you could actually see like 2009, you scroll, there's a new like 2010, 11, 12.
Yeah, that would be
You think
fun.
that's-
Yep. You just, like, one student already asked about the verification of correctness, like how do I know what I'm seeing is correct?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I gave some response to that. Like one way is to see when you're on mouse over, to look at the original spreadsheet and see, like, is that
Oh, I
number
do that. I
matching?
did exactly the same thing. I do that as well because
Okay.
it seems a bit weird, for example, that this is such a high value and this is also very low. But how is this lower then? But I think if I read a bit more about the data that I'm seeing,
Mhm.
it will make a bit more sense. Like because here as well, the size. You see, the size of each of these means the number
Yep.
that
Yeah.
has ever been collected. So to me, these two don't make sense. So I need to just go back and check
Make sure
if what I
that's
visualize is actually what I think. It
You
is.
can compare it also to like simpler things, like just make a bar chart
Mhm.
of one of the variables and make sure that they're consistent.
I also wanted to ask you because there aren't any specific things that we need to visualize. So can I just play with data, for example, just to show you average throughout years, like not every
Yes.
single year, but throughout from then to then, and just average and show
Yes,
you this.
definitely.
And another thing I wanted to ask, because I tried to make sense of CCG. So you said that CCGs is basically different GP practices that form certain CCGs. Is that correct? Like, and whenever a person comes to a certain practice or certain practices and they have cancer, that gets reported and goes into one CCG. Is that correct or not?
A CCG is a group of practices.
Yes, exactly. Certain practice.
That's right.
Certain and another.
That's right, and they're based on region.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking when visualizing it because you see, it didn't make sense to me with postcourses. Like I said, the data I was downloading had nothing in it. I had no metadata, nothing. So what postcodes are you talking about? Now you're showing that each practice has a postcode, but each CCG is formed of different postcodes. How
That's
can
right.
I make sense of that?
So you look at the CCG, there's a
And what
tab
belongs to
called CCGs,
Yeah.
and have a look at that, and that describes the CCGs themselves, the 209 CCGs. And yeah, actually, if you look, I talk, not a lot, but I show a map of the CCGs in the talk I give on this data. So there's like a link to the supplementary talk about this
Where's
data.
that?
It's in assignment 1. So there's a link to 2 Tableau tutorials,
Yes.
but then there's a link that says if you want to see a lecture just about this data, click on this
Okay.
link, and it's called Visualization of Healthcare, Public Healthcare Data. It's about this data. And I talk about the CCGs, I show a map of the CCGs, what they look like, and actually the tree maps are based on the CCG data. And you can compare if you find something, you might be able to compare the visualizations in that video too. If you find like London, the London region has unusually high incidence of mental health counts and values. That's consistent with what we find.
And for the extra 2 things we need to visualize, do you care much about which time period we choose? Because sometimes I find interesting data, but it's like 2015, like it's not as recent. Do you care?
No, it just has to be different than what we're doing. It doesn't even have to be related. Right? You like healthcare, but it could be anything.
Yeah. My course mate also asked, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but he asked to ask you, so I'll ask you. He said,
Mary, is he not here?
I actually I think he has.
He doesn't want you to ask.
He has-
Didn't want me to ask that question.
No, I think he has work. So I mean, I
Okay.
suggested it. I said, "Do you need anything?" And he said the only question he had was he found some, I think, visualizations on the data that you gave, something like that. So he just wants to expand. So he said, "Is that okay?" And I said, "It's probably okay because you're visualizing it, isn't it?" So there's no way you can find all the visualizations that have been found. And it's not going to be plagiarism.
I guess I would need a little more information about what he means with that.
I actually also thought, I don't entirely
It's hard
understand the
to,
question, but
yeah.
he said he's expanding on something else that he found. So should I just tell him to
Tell him
specify?
it would be helpful for me to get more information to understand what he actually
Okay,
means.
Because to me it was vague as well. But
Yeah. Too little information.
okay.
He's not going to be too happy with that answer, but yeah. Happy Friday. Are you taking this module? Are you taking the database module? Okay.
There's something in this room that's
Oh, it's very loud.
I don't know, there's some analogy that I think. There's a
Okay.
cowboy
Okay, good.